Welcome back, dear ones, and thank you for tuning in to the second lesson in my mini course, The Path to Your Life Purpose. In lesson one, we covered a few key concepts. I just wanted to take a moment to review that your soul mission is your core divine essence or your way of being. And your life purpose are all the things that you do in this human experience to express your soul mission, your energetic vibration. So soul mission is your being and life purpose is your doing. And everyone's path will be completely unique. We are each playing our own melody and our own musical instruments in this cosmic orchestra. And the awakening process is all about becoming aware that we're playing in this larger group and this ecosystem with others. And how do we start to co-create a more harmonious symphony? The process of reframing and looking back allows you to see how past experiences, even those difficult ones, were preparing you and strengthening you for what's coming next. And mastering your gifts is a lifelong journey, right? So when we awaken to the knowledge that you are here to have a unique journey and make a unique contribution, you learn that you have the power to make conscious choices. And along the way, I've identified at least 8 steps or stages that I've seen myself and my clients go through. And these don't necessarily flow in a linear fashion, but instead we can often revisit them over and over and over. So let's start with what I'll just call stage number 1, but it could happen at any time. So this is all about questioning, right? When we start to ask ourselves, why am I here? What am I meant to contribute? What are my unique gifts? Is this the right job for me to be in? Is this the right relationship for me to be in? How can I be of service and help to make the world a better place? And the questioning doesn't just happen one time. Usually we have a series of awakenings, right? And this goes on and on and on. And so it might show up as questioning the things that you were taught as a child, particular belief systems that maybe you held for a long time, but they don't seem to fit anymore. Or something that everyone seems to agree on, but you just don't anymore, or you just can't. And this act of questioning can make you really uncomfortable. And it definitely can make other people uncomfortable because, you know, we're kind of biologically wired to get along, to have harmony, and to not rock the boat too much. And when we begin to rock the boat, we begin to say, well, what about this? And what about that? And we're on this awakening path and maybe someone else isn't, it can bring up some conflict. It can bring up some discomfort, some feelings of rejection because you're questioning all these things, but other people aren't. And please understand, this is normal, and it is a vital part of the process of seeking your own answers, of owning your own wisdom. So much of what we're taught in our humanness from childhood going forward is to look outside of ourselves, look at external rules, systems, government, school, parents, friends, peers, culture, and that's what tells us who we should be and what should be important to us. And when we go on this awakening path and we begin questioning, we're basically saying, I'm not going to look outside of myself anymore. Or when I look outside of myself, I'm going to notice certain patterns and I'm going to make my own determination about whether or not that works for me. And again, this can be a really exciting time and a really confusing and sometimes uncomfortable time for everyone. And in that process, we become more self-aware. So you learn more about what lights you up and what drains you. You can even take an inventory of your strengths, your potential areas of improvement, and look at everything like how is your home environment? How are your relationships working? What's happening with your career, your hobbies, your health, your habits? Are these things supportive of this journey? Or are they no longer working for you? Or they're just something maybe you kind of fell into? And I did a lot of this for a long time before I really started to have this consciousness that, oh, I'm going to choose my environment. I'm going to choose the people and the activities that I surround myself with. And when I started to do that and started to make these choices and really had this self-awareness, and this is not a self-awareness in the fact of like, I need to beat myself up, make myself wrong. It can really energize our inner critic sometimes, the self-awareness process. but it's also self-compassion, right? And this understanding, the unfolding of your self-awareness will continue until you pass beyond this human existence. And if you believe in life after death, and I don't ever try to convince anyone of what you should believe and what you shouldn't believe, but if you believe in life after death and you become pure energy or spirit or whatever you call that, understand that you are never done knowing who you truly are. So what I call it is, this is who I know myself to be right at this moment. 5 minutes from now, someone could come in the room. I could get a phone call. Everything, something could come on the radio or on TV, and then boom, the reality that I knew and who I knew myself to be and the way that I intersected with the world could be completely changed. And that's happened to me over and over again. So when we don't get too attached, like we want to have a sense of security, we want to have a sense of our underlying core essence and our values, and we want to develop that, right? But also be flexible to allow ourselves to change and to shift. And the way that we get into the self-awareness is by tuning in. This is like getting quiet through meditation. I love to walk in nature. We need to have alone time. Those of us who are more sensitive, empathic, intuitive, absolutely have to have alone time every single day. We need to be in our own energetic space without, and for those of you who are parents or, live with, maybe your parents, whatever those things are, you have roommates, that could be a challenge for you. And finding that alone time, whether that's going into your own bedroom, taking a walk around the block, just being with you. And this allows you to go within and listen to those messages that you are uniquely meant to receive, and watching everything that's happening around you, noticing synchronicities, and starting to open yourself to new possibilities. And so this is how this happens for me, right? To give you a good example. Several years ago, I watched an amazing short film featuring the actor Jim Carrey. I'm a big fan of his, and this was called I Need Color. So if you get a chance to watch it, it's fantastic. And this is a documentary about his self-expression as a painter. He's a pretty amazing painter, and he really uses this as to express these deep emotions and deep thoughts, and even as sort of a way of therapy. And in this documentary, there was one key moment, what I call golden nugget, that jumped out at me. And he said this phrase, "Everything in life is talking to me." And I just sat there and I was blown away by that. And from that moment, I decided that I was going to get really observant about how life was showing up and talking to me. And I thought, well, what are the different people in my life saying to me? And are they saying something that sounds similar? Are they using similar words or similar concepts? Or are they giving me a message? Or what if I just opened a book to a random page, and I read what was there, and wow, that really resonates with me based on what's going on in my life. Or if I'm sitting there in the car or at home thinking about a particular challenge and I can't get it off of my mind, and I turn on the radio or I turn on my iTunes, and a certain song comes on and I start listening to the lyrics, I'm like, what is that message for me? Or the one that really comes up a lot for me are spirit animals. And there's certain animals when I walk in nature, or even out here, I live next to a nature preserve, and I'm very fortunate to work from home. And there will be certain animals that come up, and I'll just look up their characteristics, and I'll be like, so what is that characteristic telling me about who I need to show up as today, or what is it mirroring for me? So especially when these kinds of things arise more than once, I know that these are definitely intuitive messages that I need to be paying attention to. And when we start to receive those intuitive messages, those hits like, "Ooh, that sounds interesting," or "Wow, this particular workshop looks really good. I think I'll do this." Or as you did, you signed up and you're like, "Hey, I think this video course on, finding the path to my life purpose, I think that resonates with me." And this is what's called exploring. So we get into this stage where you try out a lot of different things, and you're like, is it this? Do I like that? We talked about this in lesson 1, like first you started with the flute, and then you realized you could play the drums, and then you're like, no, it's really the violin. And each of those things provide you with different understanding of who you are and what resonates with you. And so this involves studying and learning, gaining new skills, connecting in with different kinds of communities. So I've been jumping on a lot of different calls with groups from around the world that I've never gotten a chance to connect with. And that's been really fascinating. And I'm like, oh, that felt really good. Or, that's not really my vibe. It could be working with a mentor. And I've done that quite a bit in my life. And then I've also mentored others. And that could be really helpful to see someone who's kind of on the path that you're on and say, hey, I'd like to work with you. I'd like to learn a little bit more. But this concept is really about treating your life like an experiment. And this has helped me to see my life as sacred play instead of something I have to master and I have to be good at it. This adulting part of ourselves wants to have us be perfect at what we do right away. And in the exploration stage, that's just not possible. Like, we're there to just have fun and to see. And it's like, what if I feel drawn to go here? What happens? And who do I meet? Or I've been thinking about something this morning. Maybe I should just pick up the phone and see what message they may have for me. Or I like this one. This is a fun one to do. Stand in the grocery store and see which aisle you're drawn to. And then you go down the aisle and you say, well, what food is my body asking for to put in the cart? Now, this could also backfire if your body's saying cookies, cake, sweets, or whatever it is that is your weakness in terms of food. You might have to set some healthy boundaries. But starting with these simple kinds of things and noticing the results that you get helps you to build trust and confidence in your inner knowing. It's like listening to what you feel drawn to and listening when you don't, when you feel like you're contracting back, when your energy comes back. And then you can begin to ask about larger and more important choices and decisions, like, should I move to this other place across the country? Should I take this job, which is in a different field? Well, is this the right relationship for me? And, what does that look like? And again, it's about what lights you up, what makes you feel drained. And if we start to give ourselves permission to do sacred play and treat our life like an intuitive laboratory, we can then do more of what lights us up. I'm like, this really makes me happy. This helps me feel calm. This helps me to get into the creative zone. This helps me to feel really energized. And man, this doesn't. Now, that doesn't mean we don't have to do anything that makes us feel drained. I mean, I'm going to tell you that like laundry is my nemesis, and it doesn't exactly excite me. So what I do is I turn on, and sometimes I watch like a tarot reading or a funny video so that I'm kind of occupied by doing something I do like when I'm doing something that's sort of necessary or functional. So, it's about finding that balance, right? So now I would ask you, do any of these stages resonate with where you find yourself right now? So we've talked about questioning, asking questions, questioning old beliefs, old systems, like, is this working for me anymore? Coming into that self-awareness and really getting clear on what it is that you love and what it is that you want, and what excites you and energizes you and what doesn't. And this comes about by tuning in and getting quiet. And, whether that's journaling for you, whether that's drawing, whether you like to dance, whether you like to be in nature, or meditate or take a hot bath or whatever that looks like tuning in and then exploring, like following the thread of like, this looks great, and seeing where you are. So what I'd like you to consider over the next 3 or 4 days is to do this deepening exercise. And of course, this is your choice, but I think you'll find that it could be really helpful. So make a list of all of the explorative and learning opportunities that you've tried or pursued over the last 10 years. Anything, any club you went to, any new skill you tried to develop, any course that you took, any, video topic that you went down the rabbit hole on, and just make a list, just write it down. And as you start to look at this list, you notice that there are any commonalities, any themes, any key skill sets or interest areas that are coming to you. What have you been drawn to? Because a lot of times it's really what we're drawn to that leads us to this place, that leads us to discovering what is next for us? What is our next life purpose? How are we meant to serve? You're already doing it. You've probably been doing it. If you went back through your whole life, you've probably been doing it the whole time. That there's some commonalities. So make this list over the next few days and look forward in your inbox to lesson number 3, in which we will go over the next 4 steps. So these are steps that kind of bring us into that deepening of that mastery. And then, like I said, we can go back through that over and over and over. So thank you, my friends, for tuning in today, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.